Are set to consider creating migrant processing centres in North African countries to deal with the crisis in the Mediterranean.
It comes after a migrant rescue ship called the Aquarius was unable to dock for 7 days because Italy and Malta refused it. The SABC's Europe correspondent Jack Parrock brings us an update on how these issues are dividing Europe.
Europe is indeed continuing to grapple with the migration crisis, and as usual, as we head into the summer months, that gets worse, and that's because the seas in the Mediterranean are flatter and the Libyan smuggling organisations begin to send more people across the sea as they try to reach Italy. Now, this has all been massively complicated by a week-long saga of 630 migrants on a rescue ship that was organised and performing rescues by two NGOs, SOS Mediterranee and Doctors Without Borders. They had picked up a number of migrants, over 600 of them, in the Mediterranean over a week ago, but those migrants were stranded on this ship for nearly a week. The ship was unable to dock in Italy. The Italian authorities refused it, and then Malta also refused to accept this migrant ship, saying that the rest of Europe needs to do more to support those frontline countries which are accepting high levels of migrants. Now, many of those people on that ship, there were indeed pregnant women, many children and people with injuries, were from sub-Saharan Africa, and that's where many of the people now are coming from. Initially, back in 2015, when the Europe's migration crisis really started to begin, it was predominantly from Syria. There are still a lot of Syrians trying to flee that country, obviously with the war, but now many of the people are fleeing sub-Saharan Africa. And the question for the European Union, and one of the debates that's going on, is are these people refugees or are they economic migrants simply looking for a better life within the European Union? And that question is actually now threatening to collapse the coalition in Germany. Chancellor Angela Merkel has seen her interior minister in a coalition from a separate party say that unless she can come up with some sort of unified way of dealing with migration, then they will pull apart the coalition. And there's also been protests on the streets of Paris over Emmanuel Macron, the French president's asylum policy, where they're simply not accepting as many asylum seekers from other European countries as some of the pro-migration groups may want. Human rights groups saying that these people need to find a place and find asylum here in Europe. All of this is looking forward now to a European Council summit of leaders here in Brussels next Thursday. And The Guardian is in fact reporting that one of the considerations that the 28 European leaders will begin to look at that summit is the idea of migrant processing centres in North Africa, so the countries that they're leaving, in order to decide whether those asylum seekers have a valid claim or whether they are indeed economic migrants and whether Europe should take them in. Now, the structure of that, how feasible it would be, who would organise it, all of that is unknown at the moment. But many of the sort of hardline countries on migration, countries like Austria, for instance, and now the new Italian government, have been putting forward proposals like this now for a while. So we'll have to wait and see whether that is something that will become a realistic proposal from the European leaders. It's without doubt now the prime issue on everyone's lips and in everyone's ears here in Brussels and across the European Union. Migration is first and foremost the main issue, not only because of the amount of people coming, but because of the risk it has to topple governments across the European Union. Jack Parrock, SABC News, Brussels.